Good evening. Welcome to This Week in Turkey. CHP Deputy Enis Berberoğlu was sentenced on Wednesday to 25 years in prison for leaking state secrets in the Syria-bound intelligence trucks case. Following Berberoğlu's arrest, CHP leader Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu commenced a march from Ankara to Istanbul demanding justice.
An Istanbul court sentenced main opposition Republican People's Party lawmaker Enis Berberoğlu to 25 years in prison on Wednesday for leaking state secrets in the National Intelligence Agency trucks case. Berberoğlu, who became the first CHP lawmaker to be imprisoned, was accused of providing Daily Cumhuriyet with a video demonstrating Turkey's intelligence agency smuggling weapons in trucks to Syria. A news report by Daily Cumhuriyet in May 2015 claimed that the trucks allegedly owned by the National Intelligence Agency were found to contain weapons and ammunition that were headed for Syria when they were stopped and searched in southern Turkey. This well-known case is closely related to the Gülenist terrorism cases, since the government accused Gülenist representatives within the judiciary and security institutions of illegally ordering the search. In the meantime, the government also claimed that the trucks were carrying humanitarian aid to Turkmens in Syria. On Wednesday, the 14th Istanbul Court of Serious Crimes first gave a life sentence to Berberoğlu on charges of revealing the information of the state that should stay secret for the purposes of political and military spying. But then the court reduced the sentence to 25 years. The court also judged that the lawmaker would be stripped of his political rights. Following the court's decision, the CHP held an emergency meeting. Meanwhile, the party's deputies quit a plenary session in parliament to protest Berberoğlu's arrest. The arrest of Berberoğlu immediately sparked a massive protest led by the CHP. On Thursday, the CHP leader Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu commenced a 450-kilometer march from Ankara to Istanbul, named as March for Justice, while the party has initiated protests in all 81 provinces of Turkey. We do not want any journalists or any lawmakers to be in jail in our country. We are facing a dictatorial regime. We do not want to live in a country where there is no justice. We are saying enough is enough. That's why we are starting our march. If there is a price to be paid, I will pay it, Kılıçdaroğlu said at Ankara Central Güven Park, where thousands had gathered in support for the protests as he set out to walk to Istanbul holding a banner bearing the word justice. The March for Justice is expected to last for 28 days as the crowd will stop over in every 20 kilometers. Amid thousands of supporters, Kılıçdaroğlu was escorted by his family, CHP lawmakers and CHP members on the first day. Last night in Batıkent, where he stopped to spend the night, there is no democracy in Turkey, but our march is a festival. Actually, we are looking for justice and we are not worried, the CHP leader said. On the other hand, during the march, the main opposition party's judicial work will be conducted by 24 lawmakers in the parliament, as the rest will attend the march. Our leader will preside over the group meeting on the way, no matter what kilometer of the road he is, CHP Deputy Parliamentary Group Leader Özgür Özel said.
Tonight we're joined by Görgün Taner, the General Director of the Istanbul Foundation of Culture and Arts, also known in short as IKSV. Welcome, Mr. Taner.
Hello.
So tonight
it's nice to be here. Thank you.
It's nice having you here. So tonight we'll be talking about how the culture and art scene in Istanbul is being affected by the ongoing political turmoil in the country and also the social changes that are unfolding. So, Mr. Taner, let's start by talking about what IKSV is and what it does. It's a well-known organization among Turkish audiences, but for those viewers who are not very familiar with the local scene, let's start by talking about what IKSV is, what it does, and its significance for...
How does it function, etc.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you, Aylin, for the opportunity, first of all. And it's great to be here in Medyascope, my second time, this time in English. And as you've said, Istanbul Foundation for Culture and Arts is an art institution celebrating 45th year this year, which is established in 1973. IKSV, in short, is a non-profit and non-governmental organization. All through the years, IKSV has been pioneer in the field of arts and culture in Turkey, and now, in the 45th year of its age, IKSV is organizing 4 festivals, 2 biennials, and different cultural activities, as well as artist and residence programs, and also cultural policy documents. The film festival, which is in April, the theater festival, which used to be in May, but ongoingly starting from 2017 will take place in November. And in June, music festival. In July, jazz festival. So 4 festivals. And in 2 years' time, Istanbul Biennial and Istanbul Design Biennial interchangeably. Apart from that, the big festivals, the IKSV organizes and promotes the Turkish Pavilion in Venice, 1 year contemporary arts, the other year architecture. And in October, we also promote Film Ekimi, which is a 10 days film festival, which is very condensed, and also promoting films from different foreign festivals, Berlin, Cannes, and others. We also, as a special department, cultural policy department, we contribute to the cultural life and to cultural policy by writing and creating reports on the existing situations, and also we try to contribute to the cultural policy of local authorities, cultural policy developing of local authorities. There is one more program that I want to mention. This is the Cité des Arts program, Artist in Residence program in Paris. We do it in collaboration with Cité des Arts, and every year 4 contemporary young artists is for 3 months each is staying in Paris and trying to be part of the international scene, and they are enlarging their network, and they are learning from each other while they are living in the vicinity in Paris. So in total, IKSV is an arts and culture organization trying to contribute to what's happening in Turkey, in the culture in Turkey, and also trying to establish links between Turkey and the international cultural scene. Probably you have been in a couple of IKSV activities before.
Just like many Istanbulers, or if not all of them, I have, of course. Well, thanks for that very brief and concise introduction to IKSV for those who are not locals here in Istanbul or in Turkey. So let's shift the focus from IKSV and let's move on to more general topics. As you may have also followed very closely, the live music scene in Istanbul is going through a very visible transformation. What's happening, namely, is more and more international bands are refusing to perform in the city due to security threats. And this makes us witness a new surge of local bands appearing in top venues, important stages, and proving themselves to be successful acts. So how do you interpret this situation? Do you think that the security threats, which are keeping international bands away from the city, do you think these threats are giving an opportunity to local bands to be more successful and to prove themselves?
Well, this question, I would say, is two-sided. One of them is, on one side, I can say yes, but on the other hand, there are pros and cons for that. First of all, it's not all the international bands refusing to perform in Turkey, but some headliners, I would say, is saying that there are difficulties in security situation in Turkey, so we don't want to go. But we see more and more that these headliners are refusing concerts not only in Turkey, but they are refusing to take part in some big festivals in Europe too. Mm-hmm. Lastly, a couple of days ago, there was an alarm in one of the biggest German rock festivals, open-air festivals, Rock am Ring. So they evacuated the whole area. 87,000 people left the area, and then they came back, etc. Security is a big threat, not only for Turkey, but for all Europe. Turkey is being very close to the Middle Eastern region, and with the terrorist attacks of last year, it has #1 priority among the big headliners don't go list. So I'm hoping that this has started to change. We practice it. And last year in Salon IKSV concerts and in the Jazz Festival concerts, we witnessed coup in the first hand. We realized that this is changing now. For the local bands, yes, there is a big opportunity for them. There are stages now for them to come and play, but I would say there is a negative side of it, that the local bands is more and more, if this situation continues, more and more will be losing to mingle with the international bands and losing the chance of being internationalized. Which is that, would you go for a festival which is full of local bands? You do it once, you do it twice, but at the end of the day, would you go for the third time? And you would wait for the mingle of the bands. So I would say that this creates a chance, but at the same time, there is a negative side of it too. And I would suggest that for the local bands, that they use this chance in order not only to play in Turkey, but still seek for chances playing abroad, seek for chances trying to be on stage in the European rock festivals or other festivals as well. There are not only rock bands, but other festivals too. Especially last year, a couple of Turkish bands from here did perform in different festivals in Europe, which were very, very famous. Yes.
So in your response, you mentioned the coup attempt, and that connects with my next question. In fact, IKSV was directly affected by last summer's coup attempt, as there was a festival going on at the time.
Yes, Jazz Festival. It was in the middle of the festival.
Yeah, and just like
how did you manage that? Huh?
So, can you tell us more about how this coup attempt and the subsequent security threats? Well, not all of these security threats are connected with this failed coup attempt, but still, it's somehow they're linked. So how do you think this attempt and its aftermath affected the cultural scene in Istanbul in general, and perhaps even in Turkey?
Yes, our Jazz Festival director and our friends in the Jazz Festival lived it. They are the first-hand witnesses for what happened on the night of the 15th of July, while we had a concert going on. And at the end of the day, on the following days, we tried to survive the cancellations, because most of the artists canceled the concerts. Definitely understandable. There was only one artist who briefly said that after a week later, said that she's going to come and perform Joss Stone. You know, that was a miracle for us. We all believed that at those times, solidarity among the artists, between local artists and the international artists, were very important. So we did send messages for them to come down, to perform, maybe not on the stages that we have previously scheduled for them, but in some places where they feel more secure, like indoor or you know, some small-scale venues. Some of them agreed with that, some of them rejected, and half of the festival is cancelled. What we realized is that for the Western art, especially for the Western artists, for the Americans, for the American artists, security is the #1 issue to visit a country and perform. So, in order to follow up what has happened later on, we talked to the artists' management. And we tried to talk to the artists themselves, And at the end, we came to a conclusion that next year's festivals will be much better than the ones that we are having now. And most of the concerts we postponed it until the time that they feel more secure. Because apart from that, not only they are coming and performing in Istanbul is an issue, the Istanbulians participating to the concerts and having the psychology of going to a place where the music is played, where there is fun going on is another issue. So in order to, but the resilience rate of the people living in Turkey is highly, is very high, as you can imagine. So 20 days later, we realized that the responses coming have changed a little bit. We are very hopeful that 2018 will be a good year for the headliners to come down to Turkey. But security is now being an issue not only for Turkey, but for all over Europe.
Well, it's great to hear that there's still some hope,
yes.
At least.
Yes, yes. Without hope, do you think we can live? No.
No. So let's move on to the tourism sector. This may sound like it's not related, but it actually is a sector which intersects with the arts and culture scene. By this, I'm referring to culture tourism, and I'm going to ask you how this has been affected by these threats. And what I mean in particular is the festival tourists. So first of all, like, did this exist prior to the coup attempt and the other security threats? Did Turkey receive festival tourists?
Well, I would not. Maybe we switch it to a way that we see that it's the arts, not only festival, but for example, we had 10% of the visitors of the Istanbul Biennale was foreigners. So the festivals, this rate is something around 2 or 3%. But for other festivals, other than we are doing, there are for sure festival comers, festival goers, and especially from countries like Greece, from countries like Russia, Bulgaria, Romania. When there were open-air festivals in Turkey and Istanbul, there were lots of visitors. So apparently, as you don't have the product this year, there was no one coming. And put aside what's happening in the country, the turmoil and etc., the 80% of the travel decision is given by the woman. If you are a family, or you're alone, or you have a partner, doesn't make any difference. So for them, for women, the number one priority is security. So first check goes to security. And if they don't feel that they are not secure in that country, they refuse to go. Apart from that, cultural tourism doesn't only include the cultural heritage tourism. It also includes what's happening in the city or in the country. Like, as I've said, the festivals, on top of it, biennials, on top of it, the exhibitions and the museums, etc. 20–25% decrease in the number of foreign visitors in the museums occurred in Turkey last year. Last year means up until now. And I would say that this number doesn't seem to increase a lot, but there is hope for 2018. And as we have just mentioned before, if there is no hope, there is no life. So let's continue hoping, but there are things to do in order to realize that we should be in a position to prove that Turkey is a country which is secure and also ready to host tourists or cultural tourists coming not only coming from neighbor countries, but from all over the world, especially from Western countries.
Before I move on, I have to note that it was a very interesting statistical fact that you just shared about women making the decision about going to secure places and how this affects tourism choices as well. So let's put aside threats and security risks, and let's, for the final part of our conversation, let's start focusing on the happier things. IKSV's...
Definitely. Let's see that phase too.
Okay. IKSV's music festival is currently on, and as we're speaking right now here in the studio, a piece by Philip Glass is being performed in the Ayarini Church by
Yes.
the Borusan Philharmonic. So how's the music festival going?
Well, I would say that's another, as I previously mentioned about the resilience. So it's important that this year is a year's record high in the occupancy rate on the music festival. For up until now, we had 98% occupancy in the concerts, which is, you know, even for us, was not very well expected. So it's a surprise, but it also shows that when there is good content and when there is when people can reach the culture, they follow or they want to be part of it and they want to share it. So we are very happy with that. So after a very successful music festival, there will be jazz festival coming in July, which we expect a high occupancy rate as well. For the music festival, this year we had a theme which is unusual. So we used the cultural scene, we used the cultural heritage, we used different venues in order to spot that different venues in combination with classical music means something to the audience, not only local, but on the international level as well. And I think the repercussions are quite well. The critics have underlined that we did a good job. So we're happy with, while we are coming to the end, we are very happy with the results.
So finally, I was going to ask you about what's planned for the rest of this year, but you just briefly mentioned the Jazz Festival that's coming up. Is
Jazz
there
Festival
something else
is coming.
we should know about?
It's in July, probably. We would like to see you there in one of the concerts.
I will be there, thank you.
Wonderful. And afterwards, there is a short break, August. You know, everybody goes to vacation, but we will still be working and preparing the Istanbul Biennale, the 15th edition, which in the preview dates, which are 12, 13, 14, and 15th of September, we are expecting more than 3,000 people from abroad. The gallerists, people from the art sector, and artists and press. So the preview dates are very important for us. Mid-November, the biennial will end. Meanwhile, we'll do the Film Ekimi, a short film festival, and later on, the IKSV activities will follow. Salon IKSV, which has a capacity of 450 standing, will open the season mid-September. And international and local bands will perform there. And we will have a couple of headliners in the scale of Salon IKSP. We will host them, and you know, we're very happy that we have already booked them. We are expecting a good season at the end of the day. There is increased participation to the activities, and we hope that arts and culture will continue to be part of the whole society.
Then let's conclude on that very hopeful note. And I'd like to thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank
Mr.
you for
Taner.
giving me that opportunity.
It was a great conversation. Thank you. We'll have to continue with our next news video now. The European Court of Human Rights has rejected an application filed by a Turkish teacher who lost his position due to an executive government decree in the aftermath of the July 15th coup attempt.
The European Court of Human Rights rejected on Monday an application made by a Turkish teacher who was dismissed by the Turkish government's executive decree under the emergency rule declared following the coup attempt on July 15th last year, since all legal remedies at home country were not exhausted before the issue was referred to the European Court. The court declared that plaintiffs must first apply to Turkey's State of Emergency Investigation Commission, which is set up under a legislative decree under the rule of emergency. The leader of the main opposition Republican People's Party, CHP, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, protested the decision of the court. He said in the parliament on Tuesday, the European Court of Human Rights has given a decision stating that it would receive applications after an application to an established commission. Don't you know what is going on in Turkey? Which commission are you talking about? People are dying in prisons. We waited 5 months to just appoint members. Now the judiciary in Turkey is a triggerman of the political power and some circles. The European Court of Human Rights should not act in line with this situation. Otherwise, this institution would erode its credibility, he added. The Turkish government has dismissed about 150,000 public employees by executive decrees under the rule of emergency declared after the failed coup attempt. The European Court of Human Rights also agreed to give priority to the cases of arrested Cumhuriyet journalists and executives. The court invited the Turkish government to submit a written defense by October in this case. After journalists in a number of European countries applied to the court in recent years with complaints on press freedom, the court made an amendment to its bylaw in May. Thus, the court was expected to prioritize proceedings for the applications filed by Turkish journalists in recent months and demand the government's defense. Cumhuriyet editor-in-chief Murat Sabuncu and several others from the Daily were arrested last year on several charges, including membership in an armed terrorist organization and helping an armed terrorist organization while not being a member of it. According to the European Court of Human Rights, the journalists and executives complained about their pre-trial detention and its duration and also claimed that there had been a breach of their freedom of expression. They further alleged that their detention was a sanction against them for criticizing the government and amounted to politically motivated judicial harassment.
One of Turkey's prominent feminist academics, Shirin Tekeli, has passed away at the age of 73.
Shirin Tekeli, one of the pioneers of the feminist movement in Turkey, died at the age of 73 on Tuesday, June 13th. Tekeli's body was sent to the Chapa Medical Faculty upon her request not to have a funeral, and women held a farewell ceremony for the iconic women's rights activist in front of the faculty building. Tekeli was born in Ankara in 1944. In 1967, she completed a degree in political science in Switzerland and then returned to Turkey, where she worked as a lecturer at Istanbul University. Her thesis, written on women's participation in politics, is considered as one of the first feminist academic publications in Turkey. She resigned from the university after the 1980 coup d'etat.
Ben bu tezi seçtiğim zaman da yakın çevremden, en iyi arkadaşlarımdan başlayarak böyle siyaset bilimi tezi olur mu dediler. Yani siyaset bilimi dediğin işte devletle ilgili bir şeydir, işte askerle ilgili bir şeydir falan. Ve karşı çıktılar yani. Onlar karşı çıkınca ben de inat ettim.
Tekeli has researched and written extensively on women and democratization, women's participation in politics, and gender equality. She translated more than 25 books about women and democracy into Turkish. Tekeli was also an active member of the feminist movement and was among the organizers of the first feminist protests in the 80s, such as the campaign to change civil law and demonstrations against domestic violence. Tekeli is also among the founders of many institutions dedicated to support work by women, such as the Library for Women's Works, Association of Greek and Turkish Women for Peace, and Foundation to Support Women Representatives. Tekeli's latest work, Thinking Feminism, was published in 2017 by Bilgi University Press. She wrote this, in her own words, to tell the story of the last 40 years for young readers curious about history, hoping to contribute to the creation of a friendly bond between themselves and feminism, which she considers as the sole force that could change women's destiny.
Turkey's involvement in the Qatar crisis continues. Foreign Minister Mevlüt Çavuşoğlu traveled to Qatar on Wednesday to meet his counterpart Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani.
Last week on Friday, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan announced that they would continue to give support to Qatar, which many Gulf countries decided to cut off diplomatic ties with. In his speech at AKP's Ramadan dinner, Erdogan said that the Gulf states should completely abolish sanctions against Qatar. We will continue to be on the side of the victim, Erdogan said. On Tuesday, Erdogan also spoke about the Qatar crisis at an AKP group meeting. He said that the King of Saudi Arabia should lead the steps that need to be taken to solve this problem. He also said that he will do a three-way teleconference meeting with French President Macron and the Qatar Prince. On Wednesday, Minister of Foreign Affairs Mevlüt Çavuşoğlu went to Qatar to discuss the crisis with the Qatar Minister of Foreign Affairs Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman bin Jasim Al Thani. After his visit to Qatar, he went to Kuwait and made important statements about Turkey's stance on the crisis. He said that Turkey is listening to both sides and it will remain neutral in the crisis. Çavuşoğlu also said that sending troops to Qatar is a routine process. It's not special to this term. He will continue his trip with a visit to Saudi Arabia.
Turkish Statistical Institute announced on Monday that the Turkish economy grew by 5% in the first quarter of 2017, surpassing expectations.
On June 12th, the Turkish Statistical Institute announced the GDP growth rate for the first quarter of 2017 as 5%, a rate higher than expected. Economists point out to a rebound in domestic demand and exports as the main drivers of growth and underline that structural problems of the Turkish economy still remains. The increase in exports is explained by the weakness of the Turkish lira. Turkey's unemployment rate is dropped to 11.7% in March, the Turkish Statistical Institute announced this week. It is 0.9% lower than the previous month, but still 1.6% higher than March 2016. The central bank did not change its two closely watched interest rates, late liquidity window and benchmark repo rate, keeping them steady at 12.25% and at 8% respectively. The decision came in line with market expectations shaped after Fed's decision to increase the interest rate. The central bank also announced that its main aim for the rest of the year would be to realize price stability objective as announced. According to the official data, last month the inflation rate hit 11.72%, an 8-year high.
Our friend Sinan Akgünay did an exclusive interview this week with Israeli diplomat and academic Alon Liel about the normalization of Turkish-Israeli relations and the Eastern Mediterranean gas fields.
When it comes to the Turkish, we must understand that we normalized, but relations are still not good. And there is no possibility yet for, or at least it didn't happen yet, for the two leaders of the country, President Erdogan and Prime Minister Netanyahu, to meet or even speak on the phone on the issues. Also, there was no meeting yet even between the Foreign Minister of Israel and the Foreign Minister of Turkey. And I don't know if it will happen. So these are key people, Prime Minister, Foreign Minister, Security Minister. I said Foreign Minister Lieberman, he's the Security Minister Lieberman. So this triangle, Netanyahu Prime Minister, Lieberman Security Minister, and Netanyahu is also the Foreign Minister. So these two people are in fact the triangle of the decision making with the Energy Minister. So when these top politicians cannot communicate, cannot meet, such a big strategic deal like the gas deal is having a big question mark because the trust has to be built. So also the question of what will happen in the political relations between Israel and Turkey has a lot to do with the gas issue. On the other hand, Greece and Cyprus, the leaders are meeting all the time. All the time. The top leaders of Cyprus and Greece are meeting the top leaders of Israel all the time. So you have to take into consideration the issue, the political issue, because exporting gas, especially with a pipeline, is not normal commerce. It's strategic commerce. And for such a strategic deal, or geostrategic deal, more trust will have to be built between the leadership. And if you ask me, I don't see it in the pipeline because there are no peace talks between Israel and the Palestinians. The siege on Gaza is continuing. We just announced that we are cutting electricity amounts that go to Gaza, I don't see this rapprochement with Turkey happening very soon. Also, there is the Syrian scenario. Turkey is more involved in Syria now. So all these things together, put them in one basket, there are maybe 7 or 8 different issues that are affecting the timetable and the decision, of course. So it's very hard to speak on a timetable yet.
That's all from This Week in Turkey. Thanks for tuning in and hope to see you again next Friday at 9 p.m. Bye.